The discovery of medicinal cannabis. In the last episode, we explored the widespread popularity of medicinal cannabis in the early 20th century. However, as the 1930s progressed, the landscape surrounding medicinal cannabis began to shift dramatically. What was once a widely accepted and integrated medicine in the Western world faced increasing scrutiny and challenges. Episode 5: The Prohibition of Medicinal Cannabis. In the early 1900s, cannabis began to be viewed as a dangerous narcotic, commonly referred to as marijuana. This perception led to what many researchers later described as a scare campaign in 1930s America, with claims that cannabis use led to insanity and criminal behaviour. For instance, a 1936 statement read, "The subject suddenly will turn with murderous violence upon whomever is nearest him. He will run amok with knife, axe, gun, or anything that is at hand. After the sudden outburst wears away, the memory is left blank, and the victim of these narcotic effects returns to normal." This negative portrayal of cannabis fueled the desire to make the substance illegal. However, this was not immediately feasible due to lack of scientific evidence supporting the dangers described in the media.
Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide, and the ultimate end of the marijuana addict. Hopeless insanity. See this important pill now, before it is too late.
In the United States, the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 made cannabis illegal. This act required anyone using the plant to register and pay a tax of $1 per ounce for medical purposes and $100 per ounce for other uses. The excessive paperwork and risk of severe punishment effectively banned the use of cannabis across America. Many doctors and researchers criticized the law. Therefore, the American Medical Association stated in May 1937 that the increased taxation on medical cannabis was unwarranted, as cannabis addiction was not linked to its medical use. Walter Bromberg, a chief physician at Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, provided evidence from psychiatric admissions and criminal records involving cannabis, showing no increased risk of psychosis from its use. He argued that the user's underlying personality was the primary factor in the development of psychosis after cannabis consumption, not the substance itself. Additionally, he found that cannabis use did not increase criminality, and there were no cases of murder or sexual assault attributed to its use. Tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, was identified in 1940 as the active compound responsible for cannabis's psychoactive effects. Having determined THC's chemical formula, researchers developed a synthetic preparation, which was tested on inmates in an American prison, revealing some medical applications. However, cannabis was subsequently removed from the American Pharmacopoeia in 1941. The prohibition of medicinal cannabis was further solidified in 1970 with the classification of cannabis as a Schedule I controlled substance in the United States. This categorization, which deemed cannabis to have a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use, placed severe restrictions on research, access, and development of cannabis-based medicines. In Europe, similar trends were unfolding, with many countries enacting strict laws and regulations that criminalize the possession and use of cannabis for scientific and medicinal purposes. The once thriving industry of cannabis-based medicines began to wither away as pharmaceutical companies turned their focus to synthetic drugs and other alternatives. Stay tuned for the final episode of the Western world's rediscovery of medicinal cannabis and the 21st century's renewed focus on the plant's medicinal potentials.